Greetings. It is a joy to be with you in this virtual space. Our church community welcomes you whether you're a new or a long-time member. We especially want to welcome those of you who are here for the first time. If you would like to learn more about our community and its online offerings, please go to nsuc.org and sign up for our newsletter. There has never been a better time to get involved or to become a member of the North Shore Unitarian Church. We would love to get you connected. Let us now begin our worship with music.
Opening words today come from the great civil rights theologian, Howard Thurman. Look well to the growing edge. All around us, worlds are dying and new worlds are being born. All around us, life is dying and life is being born. Such is the growing edge. It's the extra breath from the exhausted lung, the one more thing to try when all else has failed. The upward reach of life when weariness closes in upon all endeavor. This is the basis of hope in moments of despair. The incentive to carry on when times are out of joint and people have lost their reason. The source of confidence when worlds crash and dreams whiten into ash. The birth of the child. Life's most dramatic answer to death. This is the growing edge incarnate. Look well to the growing edge.
And so we light our flame. This flame affirms the light of truth, the warmth of community, and the fire of commitment.
Hello, my friends. I hope that those of you who are done with school are enjoying the start of a fantastic summer vacation. In case you haven't heard, we are reopening to in-person activities on August 1st. So I look forward to seeing you then. Today, our time for all ages is called Our Principles as a House of Love. Did you know that love is a really big deal in Unitarian Universalism? I bet you did, because we just can't stop talking about it. Love this. Side with love of that. Justice is what love looks like in public. We weren't the first ones to say that. Dr. Cornel West was. But we love it so much we sing it back to him and the universe all the time. There was once a scientist guy who asked all kinds of people, not just Unitarian Universalists, what they thought of love and how important it was for them. His name was Robert Miller. It turns out that of all the groups he studied, whether religious or not, UUs rank love as a core value more so than many others. I guess love really is a big deal for UUs. I want you to remember that because we are going to come back to it. Another big deal in Unitarian Universalism is our principles. They are a big part of our covenant with each other. We know they are a big deal because we have so many ways to talk about them to make sure that all different brains and bodies and ages understand them. There's this way, which is really a list in English. And there's this way, which is the list in Spanish. You can even see our principles in languages like Arabic and Thai. And there's this way, which is in language for kids. And there's this cool principles wheel by Reverends Ian Riddell and Kimberly Du Bois, which shows not a linear way to think about the relationships between the different principles. It's a circular way. All of these ways are focused on the 7 principles. When Unitarian Universalism first came into being in 1961, there were only 6 principles. Our 7th principle was proposed in 1985 and added in 1987. One way to imagine our principles was originally suggested by Reverend Barbara Wells Tenhove. It's called a keystone arch. This is like a doorway through which we enter into what this faith calls us toward. It's kind of cool because the 4th principle, the free and responsible search for truth and meaning, is at its center, holding together the space for us to balance between each individual's inherent worth and the needs of the great community of which we are a part. But do doorways or arches ever exist all by themselves, just floating in air? Not really, right? They're usually stabilized on the ground as part of a larger building or structure. So maybe there is a principle that is still missing? Just like we figured out 35 years ago when we decided that the 7th principle was missing, maybe the missing principle is the ground upon which the doorway is built. Maybe it's the whole house of love we are always trying to create for ourselves, each other, and the world. Maybe, if we had an 8th principle, we'll get closer to the beloved community we dream about, where there is no oppression of any kind, where we can say Black Lives Matter, but we don't have to because they already do. I want to be part of building this house of love. Do you? Well, my friends, that's all I have for you today. If you're not familiar with the 8th principle, please take a moment to take a look at the language. Our congregation recently adopted this principle, and we might even see it being formally added to our list of UU principles in the future. Thanks so much. Stay cool. I look forward to seeing you soon.
North Shore Unitarian Church is a community that is grounded in love, guided by reason, committed to spiritual growth, and striving for justice. We accomplish this mission through the generous donations of our members and friends. We are also pleased to be able to share our plate every week with worthy organizations. Please text your donation now using the directions you see on your screen. And thank you.
Our reading today is also from Howard Thurman. It's called The Two Questions. There are two questions that a person must ask themselves. The first is, where am I going? And the second is, who will go with me? If you ever get these questions in the wrong order, you're in trouble. So ends the reading.
Lovely dark and lonely one, bear your bosom to the
When Charles Follen boarded the steamship Lexington, he must have noticed the bales of cotton stacked in large heaps. The off-white tufts would have been wrapped in a rough tarp and pushed to the back of the ship. The year was 1840, and he was traveling from New York to Boston. His friends had arranged for him to make some extra money while lecturing there. The bitter January wind must have licked his face as he stepped aboard. Little could he have known he was approaching the final hours of his life. Charles Follen was a German immigrant who became a Unitarian minister. He was also a political radical and abolitionist. Against the advice of his friends, he joined William Lloyd Garrison's Massachusetts Anti-Slavery Society. Associating with Garrison was a dangerous proposition, for Garrison spared no one his fiery rhetoric. As the firebrand put it, "I am aware that many object to the severity of my language. But is there not cause for severity? I will be as harsh as truth and as uncompromising as justice." He also bumped shoulders with the African American abolitionists in Boston, including Lewis Hayden and David Walker. And this rubbed many Unitarian congregations the wrong way. You see, at the time, there were several Northern Unitarians who had invested in the cotton trade. Follen, by associating with Garrison, had lost his job teaching at Harvard. He also had difficulty finding and keeping a post at a Unitarian church for exactly this reason. Now, some of this must have been on his mind when he boarded the steamship Lexington. This is how John Burens describes those last fateful hours in his book, appropriately titled Conflagration. The captain ordered full steam. The crew stayed indoors, helping the food servers during supper. About 7:30 p.m., as the meal ended, someone saw the stat casing already on fire. The cotton bales were fueling the blaze. They could neither reach nor signal the engine room to slow or to stop the vessel. They tried to deploy the 3 lifeboats aboard. The first, at the bow, launched successfully but hit the turning paddle wheel. All occupants fell into the water and were lost. The 2 aft lifeboats, rigged improperly, went down stern first and promptly sank. One can only imagine the panic among the passengers and crew. The captain tried to steer the ship ashore, hoping to beach it, but fire had burned the ropes from the wheelhouse to the rudder. The Lexington steamed on down the water, out of control, burning. The center of the main deck soon collapsed. The fire then spread to the whole superstructure, and as the engine stopped, crew and passengers shoved baggage containers, cotton bales, and planks into the sea to use as rafts. By midnight, most had jumped into the frigid waters. Many succumbed to hypothermia by the time the Lexington sank around 3 a.m. Of the 143 persons aboard, only 4 survived. The sloop Merchant picked up 3 around dawn. 1 washed ashore later, clinging to a bale of cotton. Charles Follen died in the blaze. But it was not so much his death as the response to it that says a lot about Unitarians at the time. Channing, the leader of Unitarianism in those early years, agreed to hold the memorial service for Follen. Follen had been a dear friend to Channing. In secret, the anti-abolitionist members of Channing's church organized a vote to forbid Channing from holding the memorial service. Channing was simply stunned. As his nephew later recounted, "It made my uncle question the usefulness of his whole ministry." He questioned whether the people that he had preached to for so many decades had any commitment to the principles and the social change that he had proclaimed. Heartbroken, the leader of Unitarianism refused to take a salary from them any longer. His confidence in the Unitarian community that he gave his life to was never restored. This is a story that we do not often tell in Unitarian Universalist congregations. And partly it's because we have had famous abolitionists who were in Unitarian and Universalist congregations. Other ministers besides Charles Follen took a brave stance, don't get me wrong. But it is also true that the embarrassing truth here is that the status quo was to keep silent. Others took notice of this failure on the part of Unitarians, including William Lloyd Garrison. After the capture of the fugitive slave Thomas Sims in 1851, William Lloyd Garrison's newspaper, The Liberator, reported that the Universalist Bell and others in Boston were told in solidarity. However, and I quote The Liberator here, the bell on the Unitarian Church, being clogged with cotton, would not sound. Ouch. It is a chastening reminder that we Unitarians have sometimes gotten things very, very wrong. Now, last Sunday, our church voted unanimously to adopt the eighth principle. This principle reads, "We covenant to affirm and promote journeying towards spiritual wholeness by working to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community by our actions that accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and our institutions." I am proud of our congregation and the stand that it has taken. Many described the vote as emotional, and I felt that too. In reading the principle again this week, I'm struck by two thoughts. One is that we have a long journey ahead of us and that we shouldn't kid ourselves about that. And the other is that we also have a long path of people behind us that have led us here. We have serious errors and mistakes in judgment and moments of cowardice. But we also have bright luminaries who have lit this path. In many ways, we have started this journey. And I think it is important to remember both of those things as we begin this process of embarking. This week, I got to visit Bob Coleman at William Barr Rehabilitation. He continues to recover from a fall, but he seems to be in good spirits. I sat with Bob in a sterile lobby made only slightly warmer by the plush brocade pillows on a puffy couch. Bob and I spent time reflecting on his past with NSUC. He has been a member of our congregation longer than anyone else, and he said that there is a dispute about whether he started in 1959 or 1961. Either way, it means that he has been a member of our church community for over 60 years. Bob was active in the social justice of the congregation in the 1960s. We spent time talking about his participation in the civil rights movement. He had been one of the members advocating against the discriminatory housing ordinance that was passed in Deerfield. He also participated with Marge Howard in the March on Washington and heard Dr. King's speech. He had even been a part of welcoming the Black Panthers to the North Shore Unitarian Church, and he defended Russell Bletzer's decision even after police surrounded the congregation. Indeed, Bob is someone whose activism I admire and aspire to. It is inspiring to notice that this important work of building a diverse, multicultural, beloved community that's committed to anti-racism is not entirely new for us, and that our congregation has people like Bob who have created a legacy of moving in that direction. After passing the eighth principle, we have committed ourselves to continuing that legacy, and I think that that is inspiring and hopeful. Continuing that legacy today means doing internal work, including participating in programs like the Heart of Anti-Racism, designed to help challenge messages and ideas that we have internalized. It also means looking at our church programs through an anti-racist lens. It means asking how we unintentionally exclude people of color with our practices. And finally, it means partnering with organizations and communities of color that are doing the work of racial justice. Members have begun proposing ideas for each of these areas, and I have a lot of hope that we can walk these next steps together. The famous civil rights theologian Howard Thurman wrote a provocative question, and it's the one that It's the statement that Kate read this morning. It's called the two questions. There are two questions that a person must ask themselves. The first is, where am I going? And the second is, who will go with me? And if you ever get these two questions in the wrong order, you are in trouble. It took me a minute to figure out exactly what he meant by this. It was one of those statements where I was like, what exactly does that mean? But on reflection, I think that he's right, and I think that there's something profound here. Howard Thurman is saying, if you don't know what your values are, you are likely to drift with wherever the group is going. Or worse, you might find yourself with the wrong group of people altogether. Some early Unitarian leaders like Charles Fallon and William Ellery Channing knew where they were going and were willing to clarify that before choosing which group to be with. This was sometimes at great personal cost. And I know that Bob Coleman and other people in our congregation have taken brave stances and chose to be with a congregation that was doing good work in the world. And I would argue that our congregation today, in voting to adopt the 8th principle last Sunday, has chosen to continue in that direction. Unitarian congregation have not always done this. We have not always gotten it right. But I am proud that we have in this instance, and I know that I want to be a part of this group that is going in this direction, that is moving towards this hopeful place. My spiritual companions, let us carry on with the journey. I'm so glad to be on that journey with you. Amen. I love you, and blessed be. If you found something of meaning here today, I would invite you to share this link with your family and friends. We are going to be having coffee hour in just a moment, and we will also have a racial justice team meeting today. So you can find the link to those in the newsletter, and the link to coffee hour will also be posted in the YouTube chat. Please plan to join us. First, by way of closing, I leave us today with some words from Adrian Rich. I am moved by all I cannot save. So much has been destroyed. I have to cast my lot with those who, age after age, perversely, and with no extraordinary power, choose to reconstitute the world. Amen. May it be so. Go in peace.